everybody, welcome to our last session on 2020. Yesterday we had the last Twitch, well I had the last Twitch stream. Today I'm having the last, oops, my bad, YouTube stream of the year, so it should be pretty fun. Well, it's definitely our last chess and psychology for the year. I don't know, maybe something happens and I show up on YouTube or Twitch for you again. But for right now, let's just go ahead and get started. I am seeing the chat. It seems pretty hyped. That's great. Also getting a lot of ads. Alright, so over the weekend I played for I played in the Europeans Women Club Cup Championship online, obviously, and I played for England because my brother is in England and I am very friendly with the team manager that my brother has. Such a great person. And so we played, I think there were a lot of different, like I was playing from US, there was another player playing from China, and like the time zones are really funny. So like the first round for me, I would have to wake up at 6, prepare a little, get my brain to work. So I didn't actually play the first round of both days. I got the rest, and the other teammates played, which they played beautifully as well. So for me, however, I played 5 games in total and I got 4 out of 5. I lost my first game that I played. Oh, I see the chat is hyping up. Hi Brian, hi Peter, hi Steve. Alright, so let's see. To be fair, I already did talk about some of these games on our Twitch channel. But something that I did is I went back and I looked at what I should have done for the openings, and that is something that I will mention much deeper just in some of the games that might look a little too familiar. So also, oh, where am I? I'm not on my usual place, but I'll be back next time. Just like I do not have my own Twitch channel. Well, technically I have an account, but I don't stream, especially because it's kind of it takes a lot of time and dedication. Getting a text from Tracy. Also, Pishi is really jumping and exploring around. I don't know if he will join us, but alright, so I kind of wanted to go ahead and ask, is there anybody from Ukraine here? Because my opponent is a very great Ukrainian player who did whoop me pretty nicely. So just double checking that. Anybody? Let's see. Well, I mean, not exactly, Steve. I mean, I only stream with the club's account, so that's the only streaming I will be doing. Oh, I think I did play someone from Poland too. There was nobody from India here. Alright, so in this game, let's just go ahead and get started and see how I got whooped. So, one thing that we could look at is, oh, sorry, camera glitch. Sorry, trying to clean it. Okay. Ooh, also eye glitch. Sorry for the camera being, there's a, sorry. Okay, anyways, so one thing that we could look at is, no, that was not Pishi. Pishi wanted to go out, but that wasn't the problem. My eye was, sorry. Yeah. Okay, let's just go ahead and move on from our camera 10-second incidents. So, anybody here plays French? Because French is a great opening for both and white and black. I generally like playing against it, but in this specific game, I didn't really have the best experience, to put it lightly. So she played nice knight f6, bishop g5, take, and here I started to make a little bit mistakes, because the one thing that I knew going in was that, well, about this opening, was that if I could have this bishop on e4, like if I can have my bishop in this diagonal, it's gonna be pretty great. Why? Because my opponent wants to have his bishop in that diagonal. So that was one of the things I really did want to try. However, I made a small move order issue. So I want to ask you guys. So here, wise to move. What do you think we could do? And Julian and Peter, it really depends on how you play it and which line you're facing. Most lines could be boring. Most lines could be very exciting. So it kind of really depends. So, but here, white to move. I need a Twitch. Guys, the only thing I do when I have a Twitch account, if I had one and if I was streaming, was sit here and study. That would actually probably benefit me because I would have to study a little bit more because today, this week is my physics week. And for learning physics, I'm going through the book, I'm looking at the videos, and somehow today, middle of reading the book, I was on a couch, the cat was up here, the dog was down there, and she simply just was so cute that I fell asleep for about half an hour. And by the time I woke up, I was already like had other arrangements that I had to deal with. I am a woman grandmaster and international master, so there is a slight difference between the GM and WGM. No, that was I don't know why they didn't make that specification, but oh, I'm glad Mohammed you read that. That's great. I'm glad you did. I actually still have to find an issue of it. Alright, so I agree. So there was a suggestion of knight f3. That is actually the move I did in the game. However, this is not exactly the best way to go. The best way to go was to take here. I actually did check it because I wanted to know what would I do the next time. So if I'm actually playing one of you guys on our Twitch channel, are we live? Do I see myself making ugly faces? Oh, I'm back. Okay, so the ugly faces work. Maybe that was the trick. Alright, thank you, Ben. I'll go attend to chat. Bye. Alright, so I guess we figured out what was the problem. YouTube really wanted to get my face doing a very ugly face. So, there you go. You guys have it. Hopefully Tracy will make a clip out of it. And that will be permanently on YouTube. Or anywhere else. Okay. Alright. So, big thank you to Ben Simon for helping out and Tracy for fixing that, which I still don't know what went wrong. And Tracy, I think you're speaking in a different language. I have no idea what is auto-optimizing. All I know is how to read books and answer questions, multiple choice. I don't know about streaming, girl. The only thing I know is you get in, you change the streaming key, you hit let's go live. Alright. Maybe that's another reason why I don't stream on my own. But alright, so let's go ahead, and I really want to be able to address what went wrong in this opening. So I was talking about bishop d3, and I believe that's where my face started going kind of weird. Alright, so thank you for all of you who stayed through this lovely issue. Yeah, that's all I know. That's all I know how to do. Take exams, read books. Okay, so I was talking about how h6 is something that could potentially be looked onto, because you generally want to exchange that, and you would get bishop on e4, and it looks a little unorthodox, I want to say. But the problem is that, well, you do knight f3, and then you're gonna just castle, you put your queen on d3, and it seems to be going great. So one thing that we could definitely talk about is this idea with c5, because then take, you could easily enter the endgame as well. I wouldn't, to be honest. Taking with the knight seems to be okay, just castling seems to be alright. So there are a lot of different things, but castling bishop c5 maybe might be a little too much, but you see this bishop is really stuck, so I do like that. Oh, why knight f3 was a mistake. No, I'm going back to talk about why knight f3 was not the most accurate move. Well, knight f3 is still pretty doable, but the thing is, when knight f3, h6, and then after take, I should have taken and then played bishop d3 to be able to still recreate that idea. But what I did was I didn't do the last take and I played bishop to d3, and I gave her the chance to go knight d5. So she first played bishop e7. Now look, if I were to take, then bishop takes, and my d4 pawn is being a little bit more under pressure. I still have this idea of bishop e4 and now c5, but you see this bishop was supposed to be on f8. Now on f6 it's going to be more unpleasant for me. So in the game I decided to go queen e2. My idea was if you take it, I can take with bishop or queen, and I'm activating everything. But the problem with queen e2 was knight d5. And I'm just going to show you a few more moves because we already covered this a little bit on the latest video on Twitch. Well, the Sunday Dorsa Talia swap, so I covered that a little bit in there. Alright, so the problem is that right now, I wish I really had like a dark squared bishop here, but I don't. So I have to start covering up. So I went for g3, and after g3, then I made the mistake of doing long castle. So long castle was a pretty bad move. It's not a blunder as it is. a3 is better to stop knight b4s, and then you could consider something with long castle, maybe knight e5. That would be much more interesting. But after castle knight b4, now white to move, what do you think we should do? YouTube. Okay, so I see a lot of king b1s, I see some bishop c4s mixed with praying. So I think I went for bishop c4 and that was a mistake. I should have went king b1, or I think just, there's an idea with knight c3 too. I don't exactly love knight c3, so king b1 should have been take, and then you are, well, your opponent has two bishops, but that's what you should do because it's between bad and worse. Then you can try to just bring like a rook e1, then start maybe knight e5, and you're doing stuff in the center, and it's pretty good. However, after bishop c4, can you tell me what is wrong with bishop c4? Yeah, I see people are beginning to realize why this is a little painful. B5, exactly. The problem is if you were to take it, which you should, that's the last hope. Now, simply knight can go to b4, and I mean it's still playable because white still has a pretty decent center, but the problem is that black also has a lot of activity which are not really ideal, so yep, that's not exactly what I was hoping for, and I made the mistake of giving my opponent too much chance, and I went for bishop b3. After that, she played a5, a4 coming up, and I'm a little busted because I can't exactly do a3 either. There's a4. So I decided I calculated this line, and I thought if I do queen takes b5, a4, if bishop c4, there's bishop a6, so I can't do that. So queen takes b4, queen takes b5, a4, then I do then I take this, c6, come back queen to c4, and then a3 to try and like pin this. Lots and lots of arrows, I know, right? Lots of arrows, giving you a small headache, I know. But to make it a little easier, queen is on c4 in the position that I'm talking about. Knight is still on b4, my bishop is gone, but it's on a4, rook is taking on a4, and I have this a3, and I'm pinning the knight. So I know it seemed a little confusing, but, or maybe lots confusing, but that's something that you could easily go for. Queen on c4, knight on b4, rook on a4, and I saw that and I was like, huh, that could work because I have this, I'm pinning it. And I made the mistake that I went down that rabbit hole, and we ended up in this position as just I discussed. And the problem was that I completely missed the move of queen d5. To be completely fair, bishop a6 or queen a5 are also much better for black, but the simplest one is queen to d5, and now I have to move my knight, which results in this rook going free and this knight going free. So I played queen b3. I was a little hopeful maybe you take it, and I survived. But my opponent was a very strong player, and she did not. She just played rook a8, and after this, it's actually a little sad. I'm just going to stop here, and for the rest of the game, I will definitely share the link we have on Study for Lily Chess, and also you can also watch the Sunday lesson for practical chess on understanding practical chess on Twitch that I was being Talia. Anyway, so this was a very painful game. Now I'm gonna show you 2 or 3 super quick, sweet games. And that is another reason that I asked Ben to share a little bit about this Scotch gambit that I've done before, but that's the reason why I want you guys to know Scotch and I want you guys to play it. Not religiously, I don't play it religiously, but have an understanding of what you're trying to do, what is your opponent trying to do. Oh, Steve, I was very sad too. Guys, I was very sad after this. But, I mean, I had another game, so I can't just, you couldn't just sit there and cry and not be there for your team. So, I'm glad that I only lost 1 game out of 5, and that was, everybody loses. Alright, so, bishop c5, knight b3. This is one of the lines I think if you are a Scotch player, you should know. If you play as black, you should definitely know, because when you don't know, this happens to you. What's happened to my opponent? Knight f6, queen e2. I already mentioned this briefly in other YouTube videos, which the links will be also posted here. And also a lot when we play the viewers, I talk about how bishop comes to go to e3, f3, so no knight g4s. And I'm preparing for g4 and long castle. So that's kind of the general idea of bishop e3, f3, long castle, g4, attack, attack, attack. So as black, you have multiple choices. One of your choices is this: don't do knight f6 too fast, play d6, get the bishop out, get the queen out, do long castle. Another choice is do knight e7, castle f5. Another choice, knight e7, d6, f5 with castle. Another choice is knight f6, and you still either do long castle, or when you do knight f6, you do short castle, but you do not play h6. Don't play h6 if you're going to short castle. Alright, so that was a lot of information I just covered for what black should do, but because I'm not going into too deep in them, I'm just briefly mentioning them, I'm just telling you the options that you should be aware of, both as white and as black. Okay, so, that was a mouthful. So in the game, my opponent went knight f6, queen e2, queen e7, white to move. What do you think we should play? And I agree. So one thing that I learned is that, so even if you don't play e4 or even if you don't play e5, you can still learn a little bit about the pawn structures, because there are a lot of creative pawn structures that you might see. For example, Carlsbad pawn structure. I don't play it as white, I rarely play it as black, but I kind of know how to play it. I kind of know what is the idea of white. I know about the minority pawn attacks. I know about, like, I have to get my bishop to f5 and exchange that. I kind of have like a general understanding of what is expected. So Scotch has a lot of those type of pawn structures as well, not in this specific line, but that is why we shouldn't just see, I don't play Scotch, I don't need to know. Alright, so yes, bishop g5. And there was a question on why not h6, because if you were to play h6, let's say right now you play h6, I get my bishop out to castle, f3, d6, long castle. Now this h6 is a target. When I play g5, this is a serious problem. But if your pawn was on h7, I would still have to spend more time and energy trying to open up your king. That is kind of why you shouldn't do this h6. Alright, so however, my opponent simply played queen e7, bishop g5, as chat mentioned, h6. Now, white to move, what should we do? Oh my god, did my internet die again? Please say internet's not dead. Ah, internet's not dead. But there seemed to be a lag. Or not. Oh boy. I'm gonna have to text Ben again. Oh, I'm paranoid. Never mind. Tracy confirmed. It's good. Okay, so I'm just being a tiny bit paranoid. Okay. I'm seeing there is a lot of mentions of retreating, but we don't need to do that. We don't need to go to h4, f4. You guys are forgetting. Knight d5. Let's go after the bigger fish. And in the game, my opponent played, queen e5, which gave me the opportunity to just take over here and just long castle. Now, this is a super weak thing for me to go after. And my knight is a super knight. d6, I simply went queen f3. As I also mentioned in the Twitch, f4 is the better way to go. Queen e6, and you would then simply play queen e1. Actually, let me show it. Why am I arrowing it up? f4, queen e6, queen e1 with the idea of bishop c4 and some nasty knight moves. Exactly, boom. So I went for queen f3 because it looked the healthiest way. And now knight f6 is coming up. So my opponent played this check and played bishop g4. One thing that I really did want to mention to you guys as well is that queen f3 necessarily is not the brightest move, but it does give my opponent a chance to mess it up. And specifically because I was higher rated and I kind of wanted to give my opponent a chance to mess it up in a worse position, that's kind of why I did this queen f3, because I wanted to allow this bishop g4. And yes, I could simply take and just take over here, and that is great. I kind of decided to keep keep the queens on the board, and I just ate that guy with the knight and just put the knight on e3. And there is only like 3 more moves, so I'm going to show you guys before we move to the next one. Knight d5, queen f5, take over here, take, and this was also my opponent resigned here, which was a wasn't for me. I got to sleep after this because it was still very early in the morning. Yeah, so I was very glad with this game, but I showed you this game because I wanted to emphasize on the Scotch of it, and so you guys will have more material to look on for the YouTube channel. Some of the Scotch videos that I've done. Ooh, GMP, she's behind the window looking in. Yeah, it was a nice game. This one is also a very short and sweet game, and I do want to very briefly mention it, so I'm gonna put a timer for less than 5 minutes to go over this game, and that is why I might not exactly ask too many questions, because I already did talk about this game on our Twitch channel, and I don't want to repeat myself too much. A little bit repetition is good. So in Caro-Kann, I realized that I don't like playing knight c3. I realized that years ago because of this weird g6, because I really want my knight to, I would really want to have the c3 against this weird g6, so I just kind of blind your bishop immediately. So that is why I went for knight d2. g6, c3, boom. Well, I didn't exactly know the theory behind it, but I knew that I want that bishop to be blinded. So c3, bishop g7, bishop d3, normal stuff. And I also talked about this a little bit before with another chess player on why I kind of love this f4 idea. And well, I've always been very great at active play. So if you give me a super positional play that I really need to calculate and find like the only moves to survive, Well, that's also possible, but I'm not gonna enjoy it. So when I'm playing active chess, I play my best chess. Tips for you guys when you play online: don't let me play active chess. So after this knight h6, I kind of knew how this game was gonna go. At some point you're gonna take this, at some point you're gonna put that knight on f5. So I was like, if you're gonna do knight f5, I might as well have my pawns on f4 and then throw in a g4 and poke your knight and then do an f5 and keep it active. So to be fair, I also did that because I was like 200 points, a little over 200 points better, well, higher rated than my opponent. I don't really want to say better because rating doesn't, I mean, rating, just because you're higher rated, you don't exactly mean you are going to win it. So, alright, so f4. Take, exchange friends. Yeah, Peter, you saw how I played in exchange friends, French, so, uh-oh, giving up on my secrets. Alright, so, yes, exquisite, probably. That probably would be unpleasant for me as well. So, we got into this position, and I'm like, okay, I don't like this knight here, so I'm gonna kick it. I'm kicking the knight, still g4 coming up. And the only thing that I did actually calculate was because my queen is defending h5. If you were to play h5, I would play g4. Take, and my queen is defending my rook, so your knight will have to move. So if h5, g4, take, and my queen is defending my rook. So that was kind of the only thing that I did calculate. And my opponent went queen a5. Simple idea, wanna eat my pawn. Bishop d2, no thank you. Long castle. And here she played short castle, which I think was suicide, to be honest. I think knight d7 should have been better. Even g4, knight d6, it's still quite unpleasant because your king is still in the center and your knight here was very misplaced. But it's still, I mean, the game still goes on. I mean, it's still very painful, but still goes on. However, when you did short castle after g4, knight d6, take, f5. Now I want to do f6, and I am seriously blinding your bishop, not just like a c3 move, like a real blinding that the bishop goes to h8 and never sees the sun type of deal. So my opponent went knight d7 for the same purpose of wanting to play f6, g5. Now f6 coming up, right? She kind of I think she kind of gave up and she just allowed me to make this battery, and she immediately resigned after. So I actually did it in less than 5 minutes. So my point of showing you this game was that even if you don't know the opening at move 4, it doesn't mean that you need to know opening to win the game, as long as you kind of have a general understanding of your chess and the general understanding of what's to come for this position. So this idea with bishop d3 was very useful. This idea with f4 and g4 when the knight was coming to f5 was very useful. So that's something you guys could definitely do. Alright, so this game, I went and I looked at the opening. So, ooh, we are reaching century mark, as Tracy is saying. That is great. Thank you, Tracy, for keeping tabs, especially with the internet crash/crush that I had. Yay. Steve, I think that's also cool, but whoa. I've never thought of myself as bloodthirsty, more like king thirsty or peace hungry, but okay. Alright, so to be fair, I kind of knew what I was doing in the opening, because I mean I play this opening regularly, but b5 was a little bit unusual to me because after b5 well, you want to play b4 and I have to move the knight and then you want to eat my pawn. So I don't exactly love this idea, so I immediately thought about a3. However, a3 is not the right move. So can you guys tell me what is the best move here? So white to move, what's the best move? Oh, the cat is making an appearance. Is he coming in? No. Ooh, I see a knight b5. I see a bishop f3. F3. Not exactly. Oh, nobody's actually saying this move. Huh. Haha. Interesting. Nope. I did a3 in the game. Anonymous. The best one is actually knight takes c6. Very surprisingly, because if you were to take d takes c6, now I have f4. And now, if bishop goes to b7, the thing is, if you were to play this b4, now I just do knight to a4. A lot of stuff happening on b6, but if you also were to take knight takes e4, bishop f3. This is also another thing that's happening. f5, now bishop d4. Now my bishops are monster. I also want to take here, play f5, so that's something that you could definitely consider, but in the game, I didn't. I was just like, ooh, b4 is coming, I gotta play a3. And also, if bishop goes to b7, you just have this e5, and this is another very pleasant position. I mean, to be fair, bishop c5s could come up, but now this bishop is kind of bad. This bishop gets to go to d3, I get to play some f5s, I love it. Another thing to do is this idea with if e5, but I could simply take and kingish one, save my bishop and save my queen, and then go to g3 and just start poking around a little. So yeah, this was something that I actually did not know before the game, and I've actually learned this since Sunday. So, well, to be fair, I kind of knew of it, but I didn't exactly know it. So keep that in mind if you are going to play these lines. Make sure you are comfortable with this. Okay. Alright. Any questions on this before I move to the game? Alright, so no questions. Alright, chat seems to be very happy with this line. Alright, let's move on. So I went for a3 to stop b4, but then the problem was bishop b7, and I should have again taken it and played queen d3, but it was too late at this point. I played f4, and e5 was a humongous mistake. Because now my opponent, what do you think black can do actually? Nope. Nope. So you guys see that this knight d4 is kind of pinned, right? And you see that bishop on e3 is defenseless, right? So if black could magically get another piece to come cover up an attack on d4, that's another thing that could definitely be a little painful for me, right? So yep, queen b6. You guys got this. Whoop. This is what my opponent's in the game. But queen b6, and I would have had a very unpleasant game. Definitely. Definitely unpleasant, least of all. Because now, if I were to take it, well, you just simply take over here, take that, you take over here, I take back, take, king h1, rook g8. That's going to be very painful. Even if I didn't, even if I just played like king h1 to I'm still attacking, that's still rook g8. If take, the funny thing is that you can even do like knight g3 and have a much better position, or you could also just, you know, take over here, but you want to do bishop g2 checkmate. so I can't save my bishop, and I have to do like a knight e4, you take that, queen takes e2, so my queen is defending it and attacking it, queen goes to b7, and this is still going to be extremely painful. So, back here, my opponent missed it, she was 2100, she missed it, take, and she played knight e4. I decided to simply just exchange this because this, I just wanted to try and create some type of activity, and then I could just do c3, defend it, but, well, I like playing active, so I went and played c4, oh god. Here she should have again played queen b6 to bring more pressure, but she simply took. Now, white to move, what do you think you should do? GG. I'm good at chess. I've never said I'm not good at chess. I say that I have a different style. So many people might enjoy calculating very deep lines and might be very proud that they can calculate 10 moves in different, like in 3 different lines and still do that, and they enjoy it. I don't, so I try to play more practical chess, which makes kind of I get a little busted here and there because sometimes you do need to absolutely calculate and know the exact move. Sometimes you don't. So, and also yes, I'm also a more serious student studying to be a doctor, so that's also another part of it. Okay. So, to be fair, yes, rook c1 is the best move, and no, I did not do it, because rook c1, I actually don't know why I didn't. I think I was unhappy with the move d5, and I didn't really like to get into this position. I wanted to keep my the different pawn structure, so I just went for take here, and I thought that, okay, well, if you take, queen takes, that's great. This is also a weak pawn, attacking bishop, woohoo. But black played queen b6. Well, now I have a only move because you are going to take my bishop and I can't exactly take it because you take and you're attacking my bishop over here and my king over here. So I have to play bishop f2. Now, she should have taken queen takes b2. And after queen b2, as white, I think I should have done something with like bishop e2 to cover up a little, and it's still very unpleasant. It's not lost or anything, but white I would not really like it. She played queen c6. Now, the idea of queen c6 is that it's attacking g2, and I can't exactly defend it, because if I were to play that queen to g4, you can take over here and pick up my bishop. So, now, white to move, what do you think we should do? And this is one of the moments that I actually did calculate, like for 5-ish moves. And I was quite happy with how the position would turn out, and I went for it. So, well, technically before I played bishop f2, I considered this. I see bishop d3. I see taking on c5. Hold on. Exquisite, if you were to take it, take rook c2, your bishop is falling. Careful. We don't want to lose our bishops. I did not place the Botes gambit. I saved this position. I won the game. But this position is actually a good position. You just have to be very precise with what you do. And rook c1 was the way to go, because you're defending your bishop, and if bishop takes g2, now I get to take over here. If you were to take bishop f1, bishop takes f1, and my rook is defending my bishop. So that was a very good game. I was very proud of this part of the calculation. And I also went a little deeper. If you take, I just take this, voila. And also if you played bishop h3, another great way to continue is rook f2. I was very proud of this move because rook f2, you see my rook is against your queen. And I considered queen f3 briefly, but takes rook f2 and it's still the same thing. And that's why we don't exactly want to go for it. If I'm gonna play rook f2, I might as well play rook f2 right now, right? So rook f2, and in the game she played queen takes c5. And now, you have a choice between bishop e6 and bishop f1. Which one do you think you should do? Yaroslav, yes, I did, because I found what I should have done in the opening, and I really wanted to share that with the chat, because the opening part was kind of what got me busted in the game, so I thought it really did deserve a chance to go over the opening a little bit more deeper. So I would strongly recommend that if you didn't get to check the opening part, please do, because I'm very proud of that part. So white to move, what do you think we should go for? I see people are falling into my trap. No, problem with bishop f1 is bishop g4, guys. This is still better for white, but the problem is bishop g4. And you can't really move your queen because your rook falls, and you can't really eat that because your queen falls, so be very careful. To be honest, in the game, I almost played bishop f1. I remember I had this and I saw bishop g4, I was like, oof, and I just immediately took on e6. In the game, she took here, and I just ate that pawn, and the rest of the game is on Twitch, and also I will share this link with you guys so you can take a quick look. And the rest of it was just technique. You come over, you exchange the rook, you keep the file, and you start pushing your pawns. If your opponent is happy with an idea, such as g5, you take it away. If your opponent still is happy with an idea, such as g5, you come to queen c2, so if g5, you have a bunch of poking to do. Bishop d5, you attack this two guys. Whoops, no! Bishop d5, queen d3, eats with check. Give another check, no chance of running away. Put that king in a back box, and start pushing your pawns. That was kind of my strategy of really just winning a clean game. Alright, so this is actually another game that I do want to talk about. So this is a Ruy Lopez game that I played. I am going to try and do a small segment on Ruy Lopez as black, at least. I think I did it as white with queen e2 lines because I thought they were very interesting, but I played this weird knight e7, whoops, knight e7, d6, g6 ideas as white, as black. So I think you should definitely have a small understanding of what are these moves, at least if you play it as white. If you play it as black, I think this is worth a try because it really does confuse the opponent. And my opponent was not like a beginner. She was a great chess player. She was playing for she was a representative of one of the European clubs, so she knew what she was doing. She played after g6, so one of the lines is a little annoying is early d4, another line is like c3 with idea d4. Whatever you do, you should get these d4 in at some point. So she played castle, bishop g5, c3. I decided to poke this bishop a little away. And now, after h3, I think h3 was to stop bishop to g4. I am not entirely sure if that's necessary, because if you played d4, then yes, there's bishop g4, but there's d5 as well. So I wouldn't really play this bishop g4. So tip, guys, you don't really need to play this h3 when you are going to play ideas with d5. Anyways, after h3, I simply played knight f6, get the knights out. Another thing is that in this type of closed Ruy Lopez's, this knight on f4 will be very cool. So in the game, she went d4, castle. My point was, if you were to take over here, now I can just take with the knight. And if you were to really change these queens, yeah, this is an interesting endgame, but my knight is already attacking your pawn, my rook is already taking over this file, and I really do like it. I agree. People trying to get away from Berlin started to look at this g6 and d6 ideas. In the game, my opponent went rook e1, defending the pawn, logical. So black to move, what do you think we should do? At this position, one of the things that you should definitely keep in mind is the idea of if white takes and when white wants to take. So if white does want to take over here, the problem is with bishop e3 and bishop c5s. That's another thing to at least keep in mind. Another part is with d takes e5 or d5. So these are the two main pawn structures to keep in mind. So whatever you do, you should have that, you should kind of be ready for it. Ooh, actually that is true, Exquisite. I'll show you how this game was very similar to King's Gambit as well. g5, bishop went to b3. I was still a little concerned about this. I could have simply played bishop b7, sorry. But to me, the move queen e7 was more natural. If you were to take it, I could just take back with the pawn or with the knight, and I don't really have to worry about these moves, and I can start doing stuff in the queen side. And when I actually do get to do the Lopez segment for a little bit, this is something that I will definitely talk about more, because I have so many games in this. In this game, my opponent went for d5. Makes sense, right? Poking the knight, you gotta move the knight. Knight goes to a5, bishop c2. Now, one thing that I kind of regret and I wish I might have done is this idea with knight c4, knight b6. Because this knight on b6 makes much more sense than on a5, because the knight on a5, if your knight's on b6, it's also stopping the ideas with a4. So I think knight c4 is definitely worth the idea. Ooh, c5 is interesting, but c5, the problem is that you have to be very careful when you do stuff in the queen side, because your main game is going to be in the king side. So you kind of have to find that fine balance. Simon, I don't blame you. I don't actually play King's Indian that often as black, but I do play this in Ruy Lopez pretty much very regularly, if not every game, at least every other game. So I went for knight h5. To be fair, the best move is c6. If you played a4, now I just have to do like bishop b7 and kind of keep it like this. But to me, this was very boring. So I went for knight h5. My idea is f5. My opponent went bishop g5, f6, bishop h4. Bishop h4, whoops, was a mistake. Can you tell me why? Well, what do you want to do as black? I'm glad Tracy remembers this, Ruy Lopez. I have talked about this type of positions a lot, and I don't think this game has ever been repeated for me, but yeah. So that's the fine thing. You have to figure out when to play this g5. I was trying to figure out how to play f5, how to play g5, and in the game I played queen f7 because I really wanted to do this f5 and have this pawn back on f5, but queen f7 was not the most accurate thing to do. g5 is. Bishop g3, take, and then g4. And now you want to take over here, and if you take, your bishop gets all freed up, and these pawns are miserable. That's pretty great, right? Ooh, right, Sophia? Yeah, you want to push the bishop away. However, one thing that I didn't like was if I attack your bishop, and if you move your knight, let's say you play knight d2, and you're attacking my knight. What do I do with that? Queen f7, and then you can just go bishop g3, take, and now I don't really want to play this f5. I also don't really want to play this g4 because it can all get tangled up. So I was really trying my best not to give my opponent too much chance, and I accidentally did. I went queen f7, and she got a4. a4 is by itself not a big deal because I can simply play bishop d7, and it's not a big deal, but I just gave like a tiny bit of room for my opponent to do what she wants. She played knight d2. Now, I really did want to play this g5 again, but it's a similar problems. g5, bishop g3. Even if I were to take, and play g4, you can still just play knight h4. Knight h4. If take, you can just play like b4. And now I have to figure out what to do with this knight. So I didn't really want to get into these uncertain positions. And so we went back to here. And my general idea is I want to get this f5, and I want to be able to take it back with the pawn. So in the game I went for h6. My idea was that I want to do f5, and if you take, I take with pawn. I didn't want to deal with knight g5s. Also, h6 is doable, but before knight c4, take, and here she made this inaccuracy. My opponent played queen e2 and picked this guy up with the knight, with the queen. She should have played knight to d2 and went for it with the knight. That was where she went wrong. Because if knight d2, and now the queen is also keeping an eye on this knight, you could also try to do like an f3, get your bishop back to the game. So this would have been the better way to go. But she played queen to e2, and she went after c4. Now, I thought this is my chance. I can do either c6 or f5, and I found c6 to be profoundly boring. I apologize for those of you who like c6. c6 is the best move, but it did not really go well with me. But this should have. It should have. No questions asked there. Because if you were to take it, now take, and now I also have this g5 and f5, and these pawns are all getting rallied up. Yes, clubs can invite anybody. That is true. So c6 would be the best way to go. I went and I played f5. She took, I took. I should have played knight f4, take, and then bishop takes f5, take over here, take over there, and start pushing e4. So I also made another inaccuracy. Peter, what do you mean it's just a name? I don't represent England, but I could play for their team. Same way when I was in Iran, I was representing. I was playing for Switzerland's team for their league. I don't know enough soccer, but I'm sure that they can get players who are not born in that country or play for that country to play for them seasonally. No. G takes f5, queen takes c4, and here I actually did an interesting move of e4. So my idea was I really wanted to attack this bishop somehow, so I could do like an f4, f3, but I can't do that right now. So I went for knight f4, and my idea was simple. I want to provoke you to give me this square by eating this too. In the game, she should have played bishop g3, which she didn't, and this would have been more unpleasant if I'm being completely honest. White would have advantage here. I would do bishop e5, and then take. He would get rid of this strong knight of mine and do like a knight e6, and this would be better for white. Not winning, but definitely better. So knight f4 was provocative because we were also, I think, in time trouble, at least time pressure. It's like I wasn't playing on like 2 seconds, but I did also, actually I was in this game. This game was the game that I was playing on 10 seconds most of the game. Ha. Oops. Yeah, so she played bishop b3 defending it, but she gave me this lovely square, and she also gave me queen h5. I appreciated both of these ideas, and I just went for knight d3. Queen h5 would have been stronger because after bishop g3 I would have this super cool tactic, but over the board I did not see it. This is something that I looked at after the game. So yeah, I went for knight d3 because it looks like a cool outpost attacking the rook 2, rook e3. I went for rook c8. I should have went for this move. That's a little bit crazy. Bishop b5. If you take with the pawn, I take that, and then your rook and your queens are under attack, which is super cool. But what if the knight takes? You take, and then the queen takes. I didn't really know what was I doing in this position, so I didn't really go for it. But it would have been a super cool tactical position. I simply went for rook c8, defending this pawn, and I didn't really want to deal with knight e6. She went knight e6. I didn't want to, whoops, I had to, whoa, that's not a move that you would do. I kind of had to deal with not losing this bishop, so I went for bishop e5, whoops. Also stopping rook g3s. She does hold advantage here. She played f4, which f4 was a mistake, because she should have taken over here, and she should have let this strong knight show off. She didn't. That was a mistake. So after bishop e5, she played f4, and I saved my knight. She just turned a check, and now it was another cool thing, knight g6, trapping your bishop. She should have played queen takes e4, but she didn't, especially because we are both in super time trouble, and I'm attacking a bunch of stuff at once. And she played
Rook takes g6, queen takes g6, and now see rook g8 is coming up, and you are gonna feel that tornado. She went rook e1, and I just played rook g8. Simple moves. Again, queen h5 is the most accurate one, or c5 is another cool move, but rook g8 seems to just be good enough. Practical chess, guys, practical chess. And here I was like, you know what? I really don't want to lose my pawns. I'm just gonna defend my pawns. And it was just good enough. It wasn't the best move. The best move would be to take over here, but I didn't want to risk it. I wanted to keep my position safe. I wanted to hold my advantage. And she started messing it up, even though her position is like -4 already. She played like c4, and I just went for c6. And she took over here. She thought b5 was working, but it wasn't. Because again, I have this like check and put the bishop back here as well. And I remember I was in time trouble and I just wanted to not think about checks, and I just played king h7, no problem. And she played rook a1, and then she resigned because she just gave up a rook. But anyways, this is like already +10 for me, so that wasn't the problem. The problem was that practical chess is very important. You see, I had a worse position. That knight on e6 was horrifying for me. And as white, I think white's biggest mistake was not taking rook takes d3, because if you were to think about this position logically, white's better, right? White has more material, white has better knight. I have a good knight too, but my king is a little weird, my pieces are not as coordinated, but if you give me like 5 moves, I'm gonna fix it. So you have to play very fast, and as white, this is the most annoying piece for black, so you should take it. Get rid of it. You still hold the advantage. All my pawns are looking weird. This knight is super cool. Now this bishop is also strong because I can't really take it. You know, e7s are coming up. So yeah, I think that was white's biggest mistake. But besides that, I think the games were quite pleasant. Yeah, I also had a very nice experience playing for European Clubs Cup. Hopefully next year, after we're all vaccinated, we can actually go to Monte Carlo and play it. But anyways, this is my last stream of 2020, unless something drastically changes. It's the last scheduled streaming of 2020, so I hope you guys will enjoy it, and make sure to check out the other videos that I've done on Scotch on the YouTube channel, and there will be a Lopez coming up in 2021, but oh my god, I can't say 2021. Ooh, it's coming up. Anyways, so happy holidays, and I'll see you next year. Have a great rest of your year.